You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
There was a story that I saw this week, a working paper that came out that I thought was really interesting. And what it was that, Scott Walker was the governor of Wisconsin for quite a while, and he earned a reputation as one of the most anti-union, anti-worker politicians in the country. I mean, he led a full frontal assault on working people in Wisconsin. And following that, a gender pay gap has arisen where none existed before between teachers, a recent study has found. The researchers that did this study controlled for non-gender related factors like education, experience, performance reviews, etc., and they found that the gap could not be attributed to any of these other factors. After they controlled for these other factors, the pay gap between men and women is now approximately 11%, where it was 0 before among teachers. That is astounding. That is really astounding. And so let's back up just a second and kind of set the stage for how that happened. So when I say that Walker led an assault on workers, what do I mean? He did lots of things, but specifically Act 10 is what the researchers attribute this new gender pay gap to. And what Act 10 is a law that was passed in Wisconsin in 2010 that, one, virtually eliminated collective bargaining rights for public sector employees. They could no longer bargain over hours or anything over base pay. It ended tenure and seniority-based raises, and it mandated recertification annually. That means every year there's a union election for public sector employees.
Wow.
That's
unheard of.
That is not normal. Every year you've got to vote to recertify the union. And that makes unions there perpetually vulnerable to union busting campaigns. It never ends. And so before Act 10, union contracts covered all teachers. They covered men and women and everybody, with the same experience in education and everything. Obviously, they got the same pay and benefits. They were on a schedule. Now, teachers are responsible for negotiating their own wages individually. And because of this, a pay gap has arisen. And again, I just want to stress that the pay gap the researchers controlled for all the other relevant factors. Education, experience, performance reviews, all of these things, they were controlled for. The only thing that can explain this pay gap was the gender and the reluctance of women to ask for a raise.
Yeah.
And this was an interesting tidbit, though. There was still no pay gap where there were female supervisors. I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. That's strange that they would have included that in their data, but that's extremely interesting.
I thought that was interesting. I'm not exactly sure what it tells us, but I thought it was interesting to mention. But even though there's been a pay gap, maybe the thing that you're thinking is men are making more than they did before Act 10. You would be wrong. Even the men who are now making 11% more than their exactly the same female colleagues, they have lower salaries than they did before Act 10 passed. In fact, Act 10 purported to usher in a new era of educational excellence and teacher performance.
Yeah. Ain't that the ploy that it's always under?
Yeah. That's and so what actually happened? We can evaluate this now. We can evaluate what it did. It's 10 years after its passage. So what happened? 5 years after its passage, median pay was down by nearly $11,000 annually. $11,000. That is insane, especially knowing the fact that teachers are already underpaid. Teacher turnover rates are nearly double what they were before. The percentage of teachers with less than 5 years experience has increased by nearly 25% in Wisconsin. And so obviously, student educational achievement has decreased.
Yeah.
It has done the opposite of everything that it purported to set out to do.
It would be real interesting to know if they done data on those border counties. You know, as far as like on the border of Michigan and other states, to see if the amount of teacher turnover is at, you know, because hey, if I'm within 30 minutes of being able to drive across the state lines and go to work at another school with good collective bargaining, I guarantee you their turnover rate is way higher than that.
They you know, I don't know about specific border counties in Wisconsin, but they did mention the fact that Minnesota has not seen any of these drastic. I mean, these are drastic changes, right? We're talking about in 10 years, teacher turnover rates doubling, the percentage of teachers with less than 5 years experience increasing by a quarter. These are huge. Their pay being down by $11,000. $11,000? That's like...
Yeah, that's insane.
That is... I mean... When
already underpaid. Already way underpaid.
You're talking about a teacher pay. You're talking about cutting 25 or 20% of their salary, almost certainly. That's... Or maybe a little bit less than that. But it's like, that is a big chunk taken out of your paycheck every year. And it would be one thing if all this happened and teachers just had a horrible job, but the students were better educated. But they're not. They're not. Student educational achievement has decreased.
Yeah, well, of course, you got younger teachers coming in. Inexperienced teachers, and nothing against the younger teachers. They've got to cut their teeth as well. But at the same time, you need the tenured teachers in there to show them the ropes, to teach them how to teach.
Right. Know? And so what we have learned, if you're like honest, right? If you're honest and you're just objectively looking at the facts and you're using logic, okay? That we like to, you know, Ben Shapiro likes to talk about facts and logic, and facts don't care about your feelings, okay? What we have learned from Act 10 is that, funny enough, reducing pay and benefits and control over the job debilitates worker morale, lowers performance, and hurts the consumers and the community.
Yeah.
Which, you know, like anybody with half a brain could tell you that. And anybody who has been in the workforce, I have said this, I don't even know how many times. Anybody who's been in the workforce knows that management and supervisors get things wrong all the time.
Constant.
And unions allow innovation. They allow workers a place to speak their mind and have control over their workplace and do their job better, especially in these service-oriented fields like healthcare and education. You know, it's not like these people are just, hammering on something, right? These are care-oriented professions that we're talking about right now. And so they want to do, like teachers, nurses, doctors, they want to do their jobs better. And when they have unions, when they have protections in their workplace, they have more freedom to do their job better. They have more control over their workplace. And taking that away obviously hurts them, but it hurts everybody else too.
Yeah. It really speaks to solidarity and collective bargaining and being able to, a rising tide raises all boats. You know, it really speaks to the fact that when you break that down and start requiring people to negotiate independently for their salary, it's cutthroat.
Yeah.
You know, so-and-so is doing this, I should be making more, so-and-so is doing this. It's constant, you know.
Absolutely. It's totally constant. And it's really astounding, like the way that, and you mentioned that a rising tide lifts all boats. That is supposed to be the logic of trickle down and tax cuts. And we've seen it over and over and over and over. We've seen it in Kansas. We've seen it in Wisconsin. We've seen it in America. It does not work. Unions work. Unions are the rising tide that does lift all boats, and the same people that are going to try to sell you on this BS trickle-down capitalist corporate economics are going to be the ones that tell you that unions actually hurt workers. Unions hurt their community, and it's a bunch of nonsense. Like, you can't fall for it.
Yeah. You left me speechless. I'm speechless. Yeah. We've only got a few more seconds, but yeah, it's a good point. And I mean, I grew up watching Scott Walker. I remember Scott Walker, and I remember all those teachers going into the Wisconsin state capitol and demanding respect. And hopefully we'll get back to that soon, especially in this state.
Yeah.
Especially in this state.
I hope so. Folks, this is the Valley Labor Report. We will be right back. Give us a call, 1-866-494-9866.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. It is Saturday, October 10th, 2020. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host, David Story. We appreciate your time today.
The weather's got everybody beat down, man. The weather, I'm surprised after all that great talk the last hour.
We haven't got any callers.
We hadn't got a caller.
Give us a call. 1-866-494-9866. The number is 1-866-494-WVNN. We've been talking about... the guest that we had in the first part of the program was Daniel Harris. He was talking about right to work and the Democrats and the conservative agenda to destroy worker power, and that was really interesting. You can go back and watch that later on our YouTube channel at the Valley Labor Report.
You can check it out on the podcast if you're a podcast listener.
That's right. Check it out on the podcast. And after that, we've been talking about Act 10, and it's the destruction of public sector unions in Wisconsin and how that has affected teacher pay, teacher morale, and student educational achievement. And in fact, talking about the destruction of public sector unions, the total union density in Wisconsin has decreased by 31%.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
By 31% since 2010.
Did Wisconsin pick up any of that off of the West Virginia, Colorado teacher strikes or anything like that? I don't recall seeing Wisconsin doing anything.
Yeah, I don't recall anything like that.
And that kind of speaks to that Act 10 as well, because that would break down the ability to organize effectively.
Yeah. I imagine that the situation in West Virginia is similar to the situation in Wisconsin now, but it's like but it's like it was newer for Wisconsin teachers, and so maybe that's why they're
took a little while to
whereas teachers in West Virginia that's like the status quo, and so they were used to organizing under those pressures, and maybe they weren't in Wisconsin. Maybe that was it. So the reason that I did all this reading about like public sector unions and Act 10 and Wisconsin and all that is because of that study that found that there was no gender pay gap among teachers in Wisconsin prior to when you account for like other relevant factors like education and experience and all of these things and time spent in the workforce and there was no gender pay gap.
Yeah, well, Wisconsin. I mean, just the amount of money alone that was lost. I mean, you're talking about that's an insane.
I know.
I can't imagine taking that kind of cut.
Yeah, it's crazy. And now there is a nearly 11% difference between the pay that a similarly situated male teacher gets to a similarly situated female teacher, and that kind of. And both of them are worse off than they were before. And that really, in my mind, kind of underscores the fact that, like, women's issues are workers' issues.
Yeah.
Minority issues are workers' issues. Like, we talked to Jake Grumbach, University of Washington researcher, a couple of months ago now, I guess it was, about the effect that union membership has on racism in the workplace and the effect that it has on racial pay gaps. Yeah. And, that's what, like, unions and the labor movement are at the center of, they have to be at the center of equality and any movement for such a goal, because otherwise it's going to be ineffective.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I'm so proud to be able to walk through my workplace with, I would say we probably have 15, 20% female workers out there, and to know that every one of them make the exact same thing that their counterpart sitting next to them does. I mean, it's really uplifting.
Yes.
You know, I don't know. It's the best system that could be in place right now.
And why the heck shouldn't you have a say over your workplace? I mean, that's like so, you know, like people in America are so like beat down with this capitalist ideology that you're supposed to, when you clock in.
Should be great. I mean, that's what you hear constantly in this state. Just be grateful you have a job.
Right.
Seriously?
Yeah, be grateful that you have a job and just accept the fact that when you clock in, you become a subject and not a citizen.
Not just when you clock in. This is something that we've been dealing with a lot here lately. When you're off hours, when you're not at work, the companies are still attacking you. Look at social media posts and things like that. They will discipline and terminate you for off the work social media posts. I mean, it's not, they own you.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
Yeah. And, you know, it's real, like, when you talk about this, you know, this freedom-loving, liberty-loving, I hate the government energy that so many people have, like, I can get on board with that, man. Like, screw the government, give me my liberty, give me my guns, you know, like this. You folks, like, look, I'll let you in on a secret here. I'll let you in on a secret. If you go left far enough, you get your guns back, okay? You get your guns back, all right? You just got to go left far enough. You got to get past them libs, okay? Got to get past the libs, and you get your guns back. Yeah. But, you know, I'm like all about that. But the folks that have that energy towards the government, they completely lose it when it comes to the boss. Like, you know.
Well, not just the boss. I mean, those same people are bootlickers all the way around.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week and get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments throughout the week. And we also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So you can see if we're on your listening platform of choice. You can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. And if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, then consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.